Hey, folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing newly released, or somewhat newly released, The Fabelmans by Steven Spielberg, Babylon by Damien Chazelle, Strange World by Don Hall and Kwai Win, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery by Rian Johnson, and finally, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio by Guillermo del Toro. It's going to be a great show, folks, so stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going? Happy 2023.
Happy 2023. We're in it.
Yeah.
We're still counting this as a 2022 show.
Right.
It's our cleanup. This is our cleanup episode.
Definitely cleanup. There might be some more cleanup. You know, it was a messy year.
I will say, I think it's almost all the films I wanted this year, with the exception of potentially just one.
Really?
And that we're pretty much hitting up with. So
That's
I like
great.
that we have this
That's
2022. A lot of these are pretty much new releases still.
Yeah,
Like
pretty
I said,
much.
Fabelmans, you might be able to catch still a little bit in theaters.
Yeah, it was
Babylon.
hard to catch it in theaters.
Okay,
so
okay. So
I'll
it's on its it's on its way out.
Yeah.
But overall, these are all still pretty new releases. It's also cleanup. Yeah, I don't know. Marcel the Shell, maybe.
Oh, is that the other one?
We'll hit
Yeah.
soon. But other than that, I don't think we missed all too much.
Yeah, there's not too much.
I think this is all with these counting. It's 83 new releases for this year that we've covered.
Yeah, the shame of it is that usually you do get some quality towards the end of the year. You know what I mean?
And then we're in a rush. We did a little Christmas special,
Exactly.
yeah. So it makes it a little bit tight. It makes it tight. But I like that we're doing this, folks. If you're wondering what happened last week, again, we have the Tom Dailies, our year in review. We're actually doing that. That's going to come out next year.
Yep.
No.
This year.
It's coming out this year, but next week.
Right.
The reason why is we wanted to kind of get these out there.
Yeah.
Some of these are big movies. Some of these are going to be talked about. They're going to be talking about for Oscars. They have been already nominated for some of them for Golden Globes. So it's just important maybe to have those in our year in review, truly get the year over with. And then next week, you can expect our very good special. It's our year in review, the Tom Dailies, our first every year. You don't got to watch the Oscars this year. You watch the Tom Dailies.
Oscars
You
are
listen
canceled.
to the Tom Dailies.
Yeah.
But for the most part, Vin.
Will Smith is going to come on the podcast and slap us.
Oh, speaking of which, Emancipation is not on the list either.
It's not.
That's okay.
I'm not boycotting him. Don't worry. But also, I just really haven't heard a lot of buzz about it, period. So it hasn't been on my radar. Maybe we'll
I don't
get
think
to
he's put his time in quite yet.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I there's been a lot of dialogue around it, actually, as well. If there's
There
been
has
enough
been, yeah,
time.
yeah.
And So,
But anyway, there's
gossip aside.
no real reason why, no big reason why you did these. Obviously, it's just no real mystery.
All right.
Again, it's a cleanup year. These are some big films, and they all came out either in late November or sometime in December. It's also weird because Glass Onion came out in movies for only 2 weeks.
Yeah, very weird.
And then difficult to get,
release
and now it's
schedule.
finally on Netflix.
Yeah.
Same thing with Pinocchio too, because I need to be in there for 2 weeks.
Yep.
In order to be Oscar worthy and everything like that. But okay, so we're going to start with what was first released, at least back in November. This is The Fabelmans, directed by Steven Spielberg. I just wanted to make a note. We have talked about him in the past, where he is getting older. He's in his 70s, and he's got a lot lined up, and probably because he's got these ideas, he has these things he's want to do, and legitimately he is just getting older.
Absolutely.
So every film he does is going to be big, and you're hoping that it's really good,
Right?
And it doesn't fall flat like maybe a Ready Player One or something like that.
Very true.
This is The Fabelmans, Steven Spielberg. Vin, what do we kind of get for this film?
Yeah, so I have to be honest. Walking into this film, definitely a little burnt out on this subgenre of
Family.
Exactly, the mature family genre. this mature family movie is also a soft biopic for the director. That's definitely adds to a little bit of enjoyment because it's tracking back what is potentially real in Spielberg's life, and like most biopics, it's kind of seeing what's actually adds up to the reality, what actually adds up to what was maybe just put into the movie, because it is not Spielberg specifically. The Fabelmans is a a fictional family, just very much the son matches a lot of Spielberg's life. As far as the genre, though, like I said, a little burnt out. We got the wonderful Belfast from Kenneth Branagh.
Yep.
We gave it an 82, phenomenal, but kind of kicked off the whole thing. This year, we covered Armageddon Time from James Gray. I cited it in that review. I was already getting kind of burnt out on it.
There were definitely some others in there, too.
Yeah.
Come On was on there.
Absolutely.
And even some this year, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I hate directors doing their own kind of puff piece, if you will, or coming of age, or that they're a story that can't be told. But I think Daddy Spielberg coming up to bat, that is a different caliber of director to take a crack at one of these. It's kind of a different story altogether.
Yeah.
The Fabelmans, by the way the title sounds almost a sitcom-like in its tone. The tone of this film is very upbeat and focused on moral lessons. A really good thing about Spielberg's character insert Sammy Fabelman is that his coming of age, his passion, his challenge is around filmmaking. It's about making movies, which is an enjoyable plot thread, honestly.
Movies about movies can be really good.
Exactly.
Really good.
Exactly. I will say I was wrong maybe to completely lump this into Belfast or Armageddon Time, just because it is such a soft biopic for Spielberg's life, down to moments that he's talked about in interviews, obviously in the press circuit of this movie. He's talking about how much he's pulling from his life, specific even film projects that he works on in Sammy as a child match the type of early film projects that Spielberg has put out there. It's much more biographical than you think, and I think that is a reason maybe to, regardless of my score, if you love Spielberg, if you're just curious in more of a documentary type of way.
That's so true.
This fills a couple different shoes, which is interesting for the film.
But that is kind of cool. It could be just a study of this director by this director almost of himself. Yeah.
Exactly. Autobiographical, and definitely in the sense, it still fits in that subgenre of this kind of, I guess, another way to describe it, just instead of saying mature family drama, it's kind of like a soured happiness. There's a bittersweetness to these.
So it's kind of billed as a flat drama. Could you say it deserves to be a little, like, side note, a comedy? Definitely.
Oh yeah, and it's so upbeat. It's so
all right.
Not as an insult, so milquetoast. Really,
not as an insult.
Not as an insult. Yeah, it's so like, listen, we're gonna get through this as a family. It's everyone's weird, and it's just very upbeat, and that's where I even say like, it's called The Fabelmans. It sounds like a sitcom in ways. It really almost has like Full House vibes. That it's comedy, it's drama, but it's all morally focused. So
is it at all okay? I'm thinking of family dramas, and maybe it's not the first ones, obviously, but the one that could be connected as far back as you can go to connect it to maybe what's been coming out. Maybe Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, I think that's maybe a great example of a starter of what this subgenre could be.
But that had some darkness and some sadness though to it.
That's worth a rewatch. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you're saying that this is like way too feel good.
It's a little bit all over the place, and mostly because of the mother character, which I'll get to in just a bit.
So she adds a dynamic to it.
Yeah, she adds a whole too much. I had to delete some notes because I thought it was just so I was ripping into her too much. But I think overall though, this is much more upbeat than any of the examples that we've talked about so far.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That flavor, that tone, the approach. It wasn't exactly my bag, but like I said, this movie fills multiple shoes. I think there's enjoyment in an entirely separate sphere or silo of this film that could just be for someone curious about the beats of Spielberg's life and falling in love with film, and then maybe even appreciating some amateur filmmaking techniques. So,
Cool, yeah.
There's a lot that the film juggles. The story is also directly about filmmaking and the craft that interests Sammy as a character in making movies. It's, I enjoyed a lot of the mock production, especially.
Oh yeah, I can
just
imagine
him being with kids and just kind of slapping things together and obviously the movies themselves, do they look like what Spielberg's probably produced or directed back in the 50s? No.
Right, yeah.
Some of the angles is like, all right, well, that's clearly made in, the 2020.
Present day, yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, there's a lot of enjoyment to seeing amateur production. I think anyone that even remotely likes movies or has picked up a camera to do anything,
yeah.
I mean, from social media to home movies, you can appreciate a little bit of the craft and him discovering that as a child.
Yeah, it's so Spielberg too. I mean, he dropped out of high school.
Yeah.
And he just loved picking up the camera and just like that's where it all started for him.
Yep. There's a lot of enjoyment. There's also a lot of shout outs to movies of the 50s and 60s. There's
that's good.
Just the huge amount of amateur filmmaking techniques. I think my recommendation is for the film geek to maybe check this out, just in the same way that the film geek is going to be naturally interested in Spielberg's life or an approximation of Spielberg's life.
Yeah, it's a movie that kind of that's what I'm saying about movies can sometimes be really good. It's actually part of the reason, just to call back to this year, part of the reason why I also actually kind of liked Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Oh, sure.
Even take the Nick Cage away out of it, it's just like I kind of like how they talk about movies a little bit.
Absolutely.
Like something even more would be like Hugo.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Scorsese, and then of course we have Babylon coming up, which also takes on very early era Hollywood.
Oh, and boy,
in a different way, but we'll get we'll get into it
in almost a polar opposite way, if there ever was one. Yeah,
but it's a good note to say that even though Sammy Fabelman and the Fabelmans in general is kind of Spielberg-esque as far as like actually representing himself, for just the film nerd or into that kind of era. It is it brings you back. It's a little time capsule in its own sense.
Yeah, and that's why this was almost hard to rate, because it does live in two separate spaces for enjoyment. There's also a very special cameo at the end of the film by a guest star that, if you do watch this film again, a film nerd or really anyone that's just into movies is going to really love. So there's a lot there, and calls back to a famous moment in Spielberg's life, an early career as well. Writing-wise, this continues the partnership with Tony Kushner as well, which started all the way back in 2005's Munich. Good to see the collaboration continue.
Yeah, well, Munich, don't forget, we had talked about when we recorded that episode where how it was kind of a forgotten film by Spielberg.
Yeah.
But it was nominated for Best Film. And I believe he gave it an 85.
Oh, yeah. I really enjoyed Munich. Maybe in similarities, there's an approach to family that I think is good in both of those films, oddly enough, and how families can be more than just, blood relatives.
Munich, I would say friendships, deep friendships, connectivities. People.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Both long movies, though. So how does this it's 2.5 hours of probably a lot of writing and dialogue with the family.
Yeah, there's a lot of fat to trim here, but at the same time, that's where it's like, who am I to cut or to judge a cut of Spielberg's life, of how important a moment seems to be? Sure,
but as far as a film, as far as watching a movie goes, you still need to keep it tight and a good package.
And this is not tight and a good package.
Okay.
Yeah. Specifically, and for those that have seen it or plan to see it, there's a sequence as well in the reception of Sammy's films that comes out of left field, and even with the themes of the story, really just is like, why was this put in? Why did that matter?
Okay.
And that's where I lean. I mean, maybe that was a moment in Spielberg's early career or developing years that made him want to make film. But it definitely is a bit too long for its own good, which will be a theme this week, as it's a theme every week. Let's get into some of the bad. The mom,
Michelle Williams.
Michelle Williams, a fine actress. I like her. I think she does, I want to be very clear. I feel like she does a good job in performance. It is the character specifically that I have a problem with.
Okay,
here.
And the writing probably then a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Mitzi Fabelman is a flat-out annoying character. The performances here, again, is not the issue. Don't get me wrong, but she is a hard pill to swallow at times
Okay.
on screen. And for how much agency she has over the plot and how things progress and how much she affects. I mean, obviously
She's around a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the mother's manic and eccentric ways just got on my nerve almost every single scene.
That's
like,
not good.
It really took me out of it. Just like ridiculous, like things that like are so not cool and just unenjoyable as far as a character in these manic ways. I think at worst, I feel it's a very cartoonish depiction of possibly some mental illness in the woman,
okay,
or in this character, Mitzi Fabelman. But just on a baseline, it's just like every time I saw she was on scene, I was just like, oh boy,
it's taking you out of it.
Oh yeah.
That's like how Skylar was for me in Breaking Bad.
Sure, exactly. Definitely a Skylar effect. Like I said, I mean, maybe at worst it's cartoonish how she's portrayed, but it just, man, just so many idiotic scenes. And I think what's worse is that the film has then this tone that is so accepting and is so without criticism and so without any kind of grit.
Right.
That it's like, all right, I mean, no one's going to oppose her being a freaking maniac, you know?
Right, you're sitting there being like, really? No one else sees this?
I know.
Am I the only one?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So I guess I'm at the point in my career as a film critic, Tom, that I'm now digging into people's moms.
No. Hey, we got a lot more years to go here, man. Right. We just got past our first main year.
Right. Spielberg's going to kick my ass for criticizing his mom. But you know, preference, emotion even aside from that, seriously though, I would argue this film is arguably co-led by her for how much the character controls the plot, and so much time spotlights how unlikable this character is.
Okay.
And that's what I mean. I think, you know, on the documentary, on the biographical side, on the film tech side, a lot of enjoyment here. Story plot, what the film is actually about, morals of all this family tone.
Yeah,
I didn't like it, and almost entirely on the shoulder of
it was just agitating.
Oh my God.
So
agitating.
Paul Dano is also in a decent amount, and then of course you have Sammy Fabelman, the main kid, which is Gabriel LaBelle.
Yep.
Able to help out with anything? Like, were they enjoyable?
Luckily, it is a story about Sammy. You know what I mean? Sammy is, you know...
He's at a weird age. It's almost like he's coming out of kid age, but he's still not quite, like, adultish yet. Yep. So how was he, though?
He was good.
Oh, okay. All right,
good.
Good.
If anything, I thought he brought a lot of... I mean, I don't... You know, who knows what Spielberg was like as an actual kid, but he brought a lot of likeness to how he, you know, presumably would be developing at the time.
Sure.
There's also a lot of themes around being raised in kind of a Jewish faith and finding what that means for the development in different areas and in California at the time. So it's just, it all boils back down to Mitzi Fabelman. Total killed the entire experience for me. So I'll end with notes on editing because this is going long already. The film does have a multi-year arc that allows us to see the highs and lows of the family, and as any family would go through. And honestly, if it wasn't for the film being so closely tied to Spielberg's real life, I really think you could shave a solid 40 minutes off this thing.
Wow.
That's
a lot.
Minutes.
That's a lot.
And would be so much stronger of a movie. I feel like the emotional beats around the family's highs and lows would hit a lot harder. Mm-hmm. And you could still achieve this kind of biographical feel for Sammy being a stand-in for Spielberg. But instead, this comes out as the soft biopic I expected and gets even a softer recommendation on the side of story alone. We're going to go ahead and give the Fabelmans a 65.
Okay, 65. I think that's a very fair score. And when you look at how much praise, and when you look at the other critics and the other scoring sites and everything like that, it's just like you're looking at it just going, there's no way. There's no way it's that good. And I don't know why it's getting such high praise, honestly. And I don't know if it's just because it's a Spielberg movie, so that's where we're at now.
Right. Or it's kind of end of his career. So
right, Spielberg talking about himself, so this needs to be good. But it was really hyped, and I wasn't getting it. You know what I mean? It's really getting good scores on places.
For sure. And don't get me wrong, there is enjoyment. So if anything, folks at home, understand again, like I said in the very beginning, I am kind of burnt out on this genre, and I didn't feel like this brought a unique or interesting tone to it besides these biographical elements. So.
Okay. All right, 65 for The Fabelmans. Coming out next, I think this was an early December release, maybe late November. Still in theaters, kind of. This is Babylon, directed by Damien Chazelle, which we know from Whiplash, which we love.
And
from La La Land, which you love.
Yep.
What did we... you caught it.
Love.
You caught it. I was leaving it on the ground there for you to pick up.
What you love.
So it's... all right, it's rated R, 3 hours and 9 minutes. We're talking about early Hollywood there. And Whiplash had this lightness because it was small cast, small story, quick,
said.
Unbelievably good story.
Absolutely.
La La Land expanded on that, but it was a nice package still.
A musical, but also music infused into it. Yep.
This is a big film, and it's tackling a big genre, kind of a big story.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How does Damien take us through this 3 hours and 9 minutes? What did we get?
It is, Tom, I kid you not, this is the messiest film of the year. This is messier than Amsterdam.
Really?
This is messier than Elvis. This is this is Pigpen, the Pigpen Award. This is the messiest film I think I've seen in a long time.
I've done a decent amount of research on it.
Okay.
So I don't want to give anything away, but just hearing even this film starting and how we get going is just a lot.
Oh yeah,
you're in it.
It is. I'll return to this thought at the end, but really the elevator pitch here is that it is a soup with every spice imaginable.
Okay.
It is too many cooks in the kitchen. Whatever kind of turn of phrase you want. Let me tell you, it is all of it.
Okay.
I mean, like you introduced, I am a big fan of this director. For a while, Damien Chazelle was in the running for my own kind of best of the 2010s. That I can safely say is Villeneuve now. For a while there, I mean, he was such an electric director. I really mean that, electric.
I still think New Guy on the Street, although Whiplash was now, I think, 2014.
Yeah, it's going back.
So he has been around, but he started so young.
Yep.
Which you don't get anymore, like Paul Thomas Anderson starting so young. Some of these big films. So,
absolutely.
Which is great, but how does this take us? I mean, because correct me if I'm wrong, we're almost Fabelmans was post-World War II film era. We're in pre-World War II.
Oh, yeah.
Early Hollywood.
Early.
So what are we tackling? Are we tackling the films themselves? Is it early Hollywood aura, kind of? Does that make sense? Or
yes, it's silent film era and everything that entails. I mean, the story mostly is a duo between Margot Robbie and Diego Calva, but it tracks a lot of characters actually in their development of a rising Hollywood in the 1920s.
Okay, yeah, the top billing is definitely Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Calva. They're the ones who are being pushed at this. But even you would say Pitt takes a third or fourth seat.
I would say he takes a third seat, and then as well, I mean, there's kind of just a handful of other. It's very much an ensemble.
Okay. Because it's 3 hours and 9 minutes, and it's a big movie.
Yeah, I mean, he's got plenty of room on the canvas. So we get a lot of tracking of these characters through the time, and I'll save the hot take of what I think this movie is trying to be for a little bit.
Okay.
But it is absolutely tracking multiple arcs with the time of a rising Hollywood, specifically going from silent film to sound. That's basically the pitch here.
Gotcha.
Old LA is sold as being vile, raunchy, and outright gross in spots. I will say I'll give kind of brownie points for a unique depiction of old LA.
Okay. Was he pulling from certain stories and tellings? Or
I did a lot of research into the truth and not, especially around actors.
Whatnot.
There's kind of like nods to who these actors are supposed to be. No one's actually like, nonfiction.
Right.
And for what almost feels like a hit piece to LA at times it is also a tremendous, and I mean that, tremendous love letter to the silent film era, tech of cinema, and 1920s California, like California culture, if you will, at the time.
I mean, that pitch right there, I'm down.
Yeah.
But where does it get lost in its own sauce?
Oh, it gets lost in all the sauce.
Okay.
All the sauce is in the soup. I'll focus on good for a little bit because I think there is really a lot to love. And again, I love this director. I saw moments that captured just as much magic as I see in Whiplash and La La Land.
Okay.
But there's those moments are also surrounded by really, really bad trash.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Chazelle is dealing with fictional characters, but is able to craft a true-to-life story that speaks to the lives of many silent film movie stars and the transition from silent to sound.
Okay.
Which is very enjoyable. Not something that's really touched upon. Some other highlights, I think Chazelle's love of music is on perfect display here. There's such rhythm to scenes. There's such energy to scenes. And I think if anyone's going to make a roaring 20s, 1920s type of, flapper movie, well, guess what? Chazelle definitely did a wonderful job.
That's very him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you look at those cues from Whiplash and La La Land, he knows that.
He knows
it's in
it.
his blood almost, yeah.
If there's a cornerstone of his directing, it is rhythm within the scene, whether music is there or not, honestly. And I got to say, once again, some brownie points. I mean, I wanted to love this thing. I wanted this to come out as best of the year, honestly, for how much I like this director. There's even some melodies and notes to the La La Land soundtrack, which I, as a lover of that film, I loved. I thought it was a wonderful addition. But there is some... Oh, my God, Tom. There is outright trash within this movie.
It's
a filet mignon on a dumpster.
Wow, okay. So,
it is, yeah.
I mean, he's writing here as well. He's directing writing.
Yes.
So where... Is it the writing? Is it the acting that falls? Is it just the directing, him leading the charge? That's just like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, it is really, what are you doing here?
Okay, all right.
You know better than this.
Okay.
Like, come on. The script feels very cheap at times and really soils its own setup. Dialogue is packed with curses and modern slang despite the 1920s sound or the 1920s setting.
Okay.
And as well as copious fart and shit and vomit jokes.
Really?
Yeah, like it's straight up low brow at times. And it's
wonder
like
why?
Such an odd tone.
Was that a thing of the 20s and 30s film?
I mean, it definitely plays into this raunchy depiction of LA. Okay. Certainly.
But just like too much. It's just
my God. It's downright like an American Pie movie or something at times. Like it's like it has like so many and I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud or anything like that. I'm saying it's just vastly inappropriate when the same type of dramatic beats, emotional characters are written within the film and then they're never a few steps away from a fart joke, It is unreal how he layered this film.
I wonder where he's pulling that from.
I don't know. I was not about it though. I was like, that's trash. I think this is kind of a comedy of the many genres it juggles. I think this is a kind of a comedy most of all. Maybe we'll talk 40% comedy, but that's because everything else is in like 10% intervals.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And I think
thought it was leaning heavily on like just history and
there's that
drama, presumably.
Yeah, there's that. There's drama. There's musical elements. It's everything.
It's all over the place.
Yeah,
okay.
It really is a mess. And I think just
I can't believe this. This is going to play so well next week. You have no idea.
Really.
Yep.
Again, I think the priority being comedy in his writing style, I think it soiled it. His own writing just was not there. And you can see it because it has like almost tear-jerking moments. The same emotion we can see in Whiplash and La La Land.
Yeah.
If anything, First Man as well. Which isn't written by him, but he's able to conjure these things. His writing is... Man,
his writing in those films are so purposeful.
Exactly.
I mean, you take it a bare bones film like Whiplash.
Yep.
It needs to be good because it has not much. Well, it doesn't have anything else to fall back on. You know what I mean? Because if the writing's not there, then the actors can't be there.
Yeah.
Because you'd have bad writing. You know what I mean? It starts with the writing, then you have the actors.
Absolutely.
And he was like, I don't know, he was like a knife.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He was sharp, he was good. But maybe it's also, this long run time can't help anything.
It can't.
Yeah.
It can't. And boy, do I have notes.
Okay.
One last note with this weird mismatch of garbage pail kids humor in this love letter to 1920s. It's perfectly shown in actually Margot Robbie's character that will have such emotional moments, and it's followed up with a vomit joke It's just wildly, wildly inappropriate and just cheapens the whole experience of everything. It's a shame because moments really work. And when they work, they really seriously work. But it's never 15 minutes away. It's never a step away from something, the lowest brow humor I think I've seen all year, which is crazy coming out of, out of this. It's also entirely too long. So much so that there are entire sequences that I was like, in no way is this even adds anything.
Not tied to really anything. Can be totally left on the cutting room floor.
One of the sequences that is very prominent in the trailer is this Margot Robbie's scream. Who wants to see me fight a snake? And this snake scene needed to be cut. I will campaign for it to be cut for the DVD release. Like, I'm telling you, it was absolutely just you could feel the whole theater as well. Like, what is this? These were the moments where people were getting up to go to the bathroom. These were the moments that people were chattering a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of like test screenings or anything like that, but clearly that couldn't have made it through any sort of like marketing product. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's test screening these days. I wonder how much they even do of it. I mean, it's weird that if you're going to be at this long of a movie, you need people to be engaged.
Yes.
You need to have a reason for people to stay in the seats. Mm-hmm. The theater couldn't have been packed, could it be? I don't think it's doing so
and
hot.
I was late to the punch as well.
Okay,
so.
yeah, well, that's true.
But I did.
I was wrong. I thought it came out in like early December. It came out December 23rd.
Okay,
it came out in theaters. Yeah, so it hasn't actually been in theaters too long.
So not too bad. Yeah, that might have been some festival
pre-release.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But honestly, core to the problem with length, the film just tries to juggle too much. It's trying to be an ensemble character story. It's trying to be cinematic history, kind of a history piece. It's trying to be a raunchy comedy. It's a lot. It's everything. And
it's too much.
It's too much. It does not land. And this is different than like a Bong Joon-ho where it juggles many genres but works.
Ooh, but he yes. Well, that's why we like him so much.
Exactly. And this is, falling on its face. There was a point that I made earlier in a lot of episodes of the podcast that sometimes the best thing a director needs is brackets. And this is a perfect example of Chazelle needed some limitations here. And I hate to say that about a director-writer. Like, clearly this is 100% his vision. It needed a second hand, though, to refine what was great. And mostly that's taking every fart joke out. It's unreal.
And cutting it up and probably knocking, again, you probably could have knocked a half hour off of this.
Maybe more. Maybe a full hour.
I mean, that is insane.
Yeah. It really depends on what you think hits. If you think the comedy hits, well, I don't know. If you think this kind of like cinema, 1920s California history, if that hits,
which would be cool. I mean, that's why I would always want to watch it. Yeah,
exactly. There are really good moments, but
are there things to be said for Brad Pitt, Robbie, Margot Robbie's performances? Diego Calva. Are there shining little, silver linings or no?
Absolutely. But again, my summary of it, and this definitely goes into performances. Every good moment is probably bookended by two bad moments.
Okay,
and nowhere
he
near.
is hurt. Damien Chazelle is hurting the film.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's just hurting the actual what's good.
Too much, yeah. Folks, I was having a real hard time putting my finger on this one, but about 2 hours in, I finally got it, and I had a eureka moment. I said to myself, this is just Boogie Nights. It is an ensemble cast, tracking ups and downs, rise and falls through an establishing industry.
Wow.
An industry of film. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely trying to be Boogie Nights and fails.
Fails miserably. Yeah. Meanders too much because Boogie Nights you absolutely love.
Absolutely.
Boogie Nights was one of the best films we covered yet on the podcast.
Yeah. But no joke, that is the blueprint. And maybe that blueprint there is just
it makes sense.
Rise and fall, multi-year arc and multiple characters, but even
juggling genres.
Yeah, juggling genres, even its approach to how the industry that they participate in has such a play on their life.
Yeah.
That again, it's 100% Boogie Nights. So I cracked the code, folks. But it's true to the structure, the rise and fall. When times are good, scenes being a joy to watch. When times are bad, we flip the drama. Now in Babylon, the good times are filled with sexy parties and fart jokes. When it flips to the drama, it just cheapens the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is my problem. In fact, some of the tonal shifts in The Fall are outright insane. For those that do see the film, Tobey Maguire's inclusion is exactly what I'm referring to, in that the film operates in such extremes that it kind of just soils the whole experience. Believe me, I'd like to see Tobey Maguire. I mean, give the guy some work.
Right.
You know? The real shame is just how good some of the drama is, and the second half of the film is. I see such potential. I see amazing moments in this movie.
Yeah.
But for everything that works, no matter how well it works, there is still some sort of scene that is either wildly inappropriate or just flat out bad. And it's a real shame. Seriously, even to the very last moment of the film, it probably has one of my favorite sequences, and then it's followed up with a very cheap montage. And it's like, what is going on? To the
weird.
very last minutes of this film.
Yeah.
It's juggling both.
It's picking you up and dropping you constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where, again, folks, I return to. It is soup with every spice jammed into it. We're going to give this one the old Kane Mutiny. Babylon gets the 39.
Wow, 39%.
And
I wasn't expecting that.
like I said, I mean,
I heard things, but yeah.
you heard right. you heard right.
If I heard anything, part of that's in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think critics and audiences are agreement. Everyone's real.
There's some other sites though that actually are not that are different than you a lot.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
In good ways or bad?
There's people apparently that enjoyed it more than you, but I don't know. It's I think that's fair if this is what you're saying. I can't believe how long it is.
Oh,
the
yeah.
3 hours and 9 is really shocking.
And that's why it gets the 39. If I had to give a logic to the 39, 40 does not illustrate that this film is going to. You're going to walk away with this exhausted. There's a toll that this film has. So
a question on the past 2 films that we covered.
Sure.
I have a feeling that Fabelmans was shot on digital and Babylon he shot with film. I would have liked both to be shot on film.
I honestly don't know for sure.
Okay, all right, just wondering.
And sometimes I'm a bad judge of that because so much happens in post-editing as well.
Yeah.
To make a film look a certain way.
I think I'm more of a stickler than you are.
Yeah.
With that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like that. Good. Diversify a little bit. You know?
Yeah, that's something I was thinking about. Because if we're dealing with early cinema, it would be cool if we were using some of the tech, or at least, you know what I mean? Or at least like film versus digital, which is, very, very...
Right.
It can be different.
Absolutely.
And, digital
and something
was
to pay
not at all a
attention
thing
to.
back then.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so 39 for Babylon. That's a tough one to recommend to go sit down for 3 hours and 9
really
minutes.
Is.
It's tough.
It's tough to recommend when there's a fart joke around every corner. Every corner.
It's weird.
Weird raunchy. Like, what the hell was he thinking?
I don't know. Well, we'll see what he does next. I mean, he's definitely, like I said, he's very young. He's got a lot of movies to come out still.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But boy, Babylon with the 39%.
Still rooting for you, Damien.
Big time.
Yeah.
No doubt. Okay, so we're going to go on here to probably the most obscure one of the list. Probably the most not as well known.
I'll be a little bit quicker with this.
This is rated PG, and this is our breezy hour and 42. This is Strange World. It's our animated film. What do we have with Strange World under this Disney flick here?
This is very clearly, and I hate to say it like this, but kind of a B-list release. Don Hall did Raya and the Last Dragon, did Big Hero 6, did Moana.
Big movies.
Yeah, big movies.
I mean, yeah, some of those, especially as far as, awards and all that. So
yeah. But like we see what was done for him, this is a torch pass movie, as happens in Disney's directing space.
Describe that a bit.
Someone will come on as a co-director for an animated feature, and then
they'll give the next one.
Yeah, they'll get their solos.
So you're talking about Kwai Win. She also I think it's a woman. Kwai Win.
No, I think it's a guy.
Okay, so whatever. He also wrote this, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where that kind of torch pass is. But like I said, sadly, much like 2021's Raya and the Last Dragon, this is very squarely in the B release for Disney.
Yeah.
That they're pumping it out, heavily edited for Chinese markets probably. So out of Turning Red and Lightyear, clearly this was the outlier production-wise, but guess what? I despise Lightyear, so the bar's set pretty low.
Set very low. Yeah. But for this, what is our main storyline here?
Yeah. So Strange World is a family story about a line of explorers, the Clades. The Clades. They're human, but they're not Earthling. They live on this alien world and a wild alien planet. The story focuses on 3 generations: the grandfather, the father, and the son. And it kind of is about comparing their inherited traits, but also contrasting their upbringings. Sci-fi wise, this is like a journey to the center of the earth. It's focusing on going inward, wild monsters, fantastical, sights and sounds and wild biology. And the film is it accomplishes a lot of visual eye candy.
Okay.
It's unfortunately in the story beats that I was really hating this thing. So much dialogue is sent around this fake therapy talk. It is like, oh my God, it's so nauseating, Tom.
Fake therapy talk?
It's like everyone's like, every line of dialogue is supposed to like get in some sort of like emotional intelligence or therapy that is happening with it. And obviously this is a Pixar formula that's being done. Pixar created that type of, emotional beats within a children's story.
In a good way though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is clearly trying to be an imposter to that and failing in a big way. Don't get me wrong. I have zero issue with the message it's trying to tell. It is typical for Disney Innovations to kind of follow suit with what Pixar does. They kind of follow in the shadow of Pixar. But it is near constant. I mean, every line, anytime characters are interacting, they are just airing their dirty laundry, and it is just flat out annoying.
It's annoying, yeah.
Oh my God. And off of like nothing problems because it is a children's movie.
Right.
Off of clearly something that if you talked maybe one more sentence, it'd be resolved. But nope, you know what I mean? It's so terrible. This, again, fake therapy talk. That's the new criticism. I'm sure we'll get a lot of those in 2023. It's really nothing it's nothing more than surface level, and it just meshes very poorly with this deep sci-fi exploration movie.
Yeah, like how was the animation, the world, the strange world
it was
itself?
Awesome.
Yeah,
it was awesome. But anytime there are two characters on screen, I like when there's one character,
right?
Because they're just like, they're bewildered by it. Two characters on screen, they're airing it out. It's an angry fighting movie, quarreling
right?
movie.
Yeah,
It's annoying. At worst, I think this ignores one of the larger characters, the son, who is actually a Disney-led homosexual character. And you can feel the moments where, like with all Disney films, it's going to be cut in editing for, the Chinese release. It's going to be cut for international releases where that's not going to fly. And I think most of all, the story's not about that at all. And it's like, well, that's the missed opportunity. That would have been a wonderful story in discovering new worlds. It could have played into it. Right,
yeah.
Instead, we got to worry about like, oh, Dad, you didn't raise me right. Well, why didn't you raise me? Oh, he was doing other things. Just talk about it. I don't know. It was flat out annoying. I feel like this week I was just getting annoyed with the films.
This one did not do. I mean, no one was really loving this. I feel like it's getting higher critic stuff because I feel like they have to be nice. Again, I just feel like
because of the fake therapy talk. It's
and if you have like you have a main gay character kind of and that kind of stuff, that's just how it is. I mean, let's just be real.
I mean, if anything, this film puts that to the side to the back burner.
Right.
And it goes for the lower hanging fruit with it. So. Luckily, I would say the style on screen holds up, and again, this kind of homage to Journey of the Center of the Earth with Disney stylings is very well executed upon. I think design-wise, I was really in love and saved the whole thing because I definitely wasn't digging the plot or the dialogue.
Right, pretty to look at least.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, some really cool sci-fi designs. I'm talking like bioluminescent pterodactyls and... entirely gelatinous creatures, electric plants, walking islands. I mean, some really cool stuff.
Definitely.
And that's where I come a little bit lighter. As much as I was annoyed by this, I mean, it is a children's film. And I think my critique is that children are going to be bored by some of that emotional beat stuff.
Yeah, you really got to balance that well, and that's what makes Pixar so damn good.
Yeah,
especially even their older stuff.
Oh yeah,
that balancing act of it,
and they're able to achieve it in a genuine way, not a forced way, and certainly one that even meshes with the.
By the way, kids pick up on that too.
Absolutely,
like kids totally pick up on that kind of stuff.
I know the bickering isn't even fun. I mean, the bickering is just like, oh my God. Say one more line of dialogue and the conflict is done. That's it. They're talking already. They're bitching at each other already. Yeah. The list goes on, and though Avatar may have crushed this in theaters,
I don't think it was Avatar. I think this crushed itself. Seriously, this crushed itself.
Yeah. Well, design-wise, I really did love it. It kind of saved the whole thing.
Okay, all right.
So that's about it for my thoughts, though. Narrative isn't bad. Dialogue is a headache. And I can't overstate how in-your-face this fake therapy talk is. I mean, it's every duo scene. Put it on for some eye candy, and I certainly want to be a little bit more, light-handed in my approach to this, because if this gives birth to a kid's love in sci-fi, mission accomplished. If this is the gateway drug to have them watch more science fiction,
sure.
I think that's phenomenal. We're going to go ahead and give Strange Worlds a 52.
52, okay. I mean, the movie just came and went. It has higher ratings than I think it should.
Yeah.
And I think because of those reasons that we talked about.
Yeah.
It's not reflective in actual people. It's not reflective at all with the money it's grossing or for the attention it's getting or for it's
and I can't state.
It's almost at this point, go back to making one film a year.
Yeah.
Because this
or two. You got Disney Animations, you get Pixar, basically.
Yeah, I get. The 4 a year it's just not working.
Yeah.
Make your teams really solidified, really true, great people.
Yep.
I would rather less and have better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I said, I can't overstate. I mean, this could go deeper into its social message or anything like that. I think that would have been better than it's this
right.
This fake, it's fabricated, it's manufactured drama.
Okay. All right. Well, that's been, yeah. Ugh. There you go. That's your 52% for Strange World. It's the shortest review we've ever done.
Right. Yeah. For sci-fi, no less.
All right, Finn. Well, you know what that means. We're gonna go ahead on that sour note. We'll jump in here to our producer segment here before we get on to our last two films. Like we said, they're all kind of new releases.
Yep.
So before we do that, we want to thank our producer, which is Jeremy Moskowitz, for this week. Coming in again. And Jeremy came in with $100.
Wow.
Jeremy came in with $100. It's a huge donation. He wrote in a small note, and he just said, Benny and Tommy. He goes, don't hold back. You don't know what friends are until you've made a couple enemies.
Ooh, love it.
And I really like that. I thought
great.
It was a really great, short, sweet note, Jeremy. I got to be honest with you. The new year is coming. You know, some of our re-upping is happening as far as like our the money and everything like that. Jeremy, $100 is. Can't tell. It's so nice of you.
Keeping the wheels on the wagon.
So it really exactly right on your shoulders itself. But no, Jeremy. I mean, I can't tell you how kind that is. How much we appreciate it. That value that you're getting, that you're giving back to us. That itself just means so much to us.
Yep.
Really is quite amazing. And if people are listening and if you're wondering what's going on, a lot of you know the deal already. It's a value for value model. We're completely producer supported. So you go to the donations tab on the dailyratings.com and you yourself become an actual producer of the Daily Ratings. So Jeremy, for episode 64, you're the executive producer, and as a whole, you're just a producer of the Daily Ratings. We thank you so much for that. And the whole idea is, are you getting value from the podcast, from the website? Are you enjoying this a little bit more? Are you starting to watch movies, getting to film a little bit more? If you show us some value back. And Jeremy decided to give $100, which is so kind. We don't need $100 from everybody. If everybody just gave a little bit, you know what I mean? At $5 here, $5 there. We have some subscriptions plans. If you want to do monthly, one-time donations, it's totally fine. It's whatever you want. You can go ahead and pick a number and just send our way. You write in a note along with it, just like Jeremy did. It could be short and sweet like him. It could be longer if you want. Ask us questions. Ask us anything, critiques, comments. As I always say, it's a through line to you. So we just want to, again, Jeremy, thank you so much for your producership of the Daily Ratings once again. And anyone who also wants to join in, it's dailyratings.com. Head to the donations tab. And again, become a producer today.
Absolutely.
All right, Vince. So with that, we're going to keep it going here. We have our last two films, and that came out kind of recently. There's both Netflix's. They were in theaters for a short period because they need to be in order to be counted as a real movie, basically.
Right, yeah, there was a weird release on Glass Onion.
We're gonna start with Rian Johnson's Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery.
Yep.
We're back. This is film 2 of the 3. I heard that.
Is it only 3?
Yeah, because they had the first one, and I heard that they got brought back for 2 more.
Okay.
So this is number 2, and we'll have a third one. I was told Netflix bought it for something like $400 million.
Really?
Yeah,
Well, I obviously
property
know
rights
the
to it.
purchase, but didn't know the dollar.
Well,
amount.
apparently Daniel Craig and Ryan Johnson each got $100 million each to do it. That's
Big
just
payday.
reported. I don't know
Big
if that's true.
payday.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I watched this,
Yeah,
so it'd be
really?
fun to talk about it. I don't
Okay.
think I'll give it Tommy Two Shoes.
Okay.
Don't
feel strong enough about it?
I don't feel strong enough about it.
Fair enough.
I feel strong about some things about it.
Okay.
But let's get into it. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. How did it fare, and what are we dealing with this time around?
Yeah, so I would say ultimately don't worry about watching Knives Out 2019. I think this is an entirely new cast re-roll, very large ones, and really as is the case with all these murder mystery revivals that we're getting that is so in fashion right now, in vogue.
Yeah, the only recurring is Daniel Craig, of course.
Yes, exactly.
And he had a number 2. Kind of a right hand man in the first film.
Yes, I think Lakeith Stanfield.
Right, so don't expect him back.
Yes, exactly. So it's just Craig as his master detective character, Benoit Blanc. Unfortunately, I gotta say, I mean, I don't think this movie was bad. I think this movie was a big improvement over Knives Out. Really, one of my only criticisms, which is kind of big because he's just in all of it, is Craig's accent work here. I mean, it is what is this whack ass Southern Belle? Tall glass of tea, like what is this? It's so cartoonish. It seems totally out of like.
Do you think it's even more than Knives Out than the first one?
I think so because he's put in different scenarios.
Like he's hamming it up a little bit more.
He's making sure we tune in for the third.
So I didn't like it, and yet at the same time, I loved it. And I was just like, okay, if this is what we're doing, Daniel, go for it.
Right,
it's
right.
like, all right, the leash is already off.
Yeah.
So like, have a blast.
Yeah.
It is kind of funny to sit down through a whole film of him talking like that.
Yeah, he's doing a Frank Underwood impression, basically.
But a bad one. Yeah, an over the top Frank Underwood impression.
Like extremely over the top. So, I mean, I think it's kind of a viewer beware note for me. Wasn't my bag. If you're not bothered by this accent work, if you're not bothered by this, Southern gentleman approach to it, I think it's fine. It just wasn't my bag,
Sure.
and unfortunately, that affects the whole baseline of the film because he's the Sherlock Holmes. You know what I mean? He's the one to give the dramatic reveals and everything like that. As far as the setup here, we have a group of elite friends gathering for kind of a meta murder mystery party. On top of that, the most pompous of the group, Ed Norton's Miles Brown. He's a character that is kind of this tech elite, certainly nods to Elon and trying to, I mean, I feel like actually a lot of the characters are more so kind of real life inserts and having some jabs at real life, more so than Knives Out, where it was just this kind of eccentric family.
The biggest thing is think of a main personality trait, and that's just each individual character.
Well said.
Is basically how you get it. You have all the different character traits sitting in the room together.
Yep. I think excellently said. The story structure places us kind of piecing together the past history of these friends in addition to the murder mystery itself, which is honestly, I thought, was pretty great. It's nowhere near as successful as Bodies, 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 which is definitely where the bar is set for me as far as doing something creative with these
whodunit.
Yeah, the whodunit.
Talk about another thing that's gained. I mean, the family dramas and this.
Yeah, they absolutely emerging genres, or maybe this one's more of a revival.
Right, the Agatha Christie stuff definitely with Death on the Nile. They brought back the what was the train one that everyone's done?
Murder on the Order.
Right, they did that 50 times, but they brought that back. River on the Death on the Nile.
Yep.
That was like
see how they run too. A minor release, but technically a whodunit.
No, big time. Yeah, you're so right. But Ryan Johnson, I forget what he loved reading things growing up, and I don't know if it was Agatha Christie or something else.
Sure,
maybe it was. I kind of forget, but definitely coming from his childhood and like loving this kind of genre.
Yep.
So they all kind of have their own flavor, don't they?
Yeah, and I think that comes from a very large cast. It comes from a variety of cast members. I think there is enjoyment for that, and I think that enjoyment is going to fluctuate drastically viewer to viewer because if out of the wide net that's cast for how many actors are in this, if there's one that you really hate or something like that, maybe that could work against the film. That wasn't the case here for me, but again, I'm not really super in love with this whodunit type of genre. It's got to do something unique. It's been around forever, and I think this
being
revival
hit really
is,
hard. Yeah.
I see this revival as no different than the star-packed, rom-coms that we get in the 2000s, the yearly releases that has like 17 actors in it. This is basically just a new form of that, honestly. They're probably for a tax break or some shit.
Well, however, well, definitely not a tax break for Netflix because they're bleeding dry.
They're bleeding it. It's number one. They put it in your face. It's number one.
So I have to say, I mean, overall, we're coming across this the very same way.
Yep.
The movie I felt was nothing special. I like seeing Craig on screen.
Yep.
He is kind of ridiculous. To the point. Sometimes I was raising my eyebrow and being like, okay, all right, we're doing this.
Yep.
Sometimes I was enjoying it.
Sure.
Writing nothing special because that's Rian Johnson's. I don't think it's anything special, in my opinion. But it was very high production.
Yeah.
And this was a much brighter. We're kind of set in, I wouldn't say tropics, but we're set kind of around water and we're on an island. So it's brighter, it's crisper looking.
Yeah.
When in the first one, we're in a dusty old dirty mansion. So the colors are more muted. So it's just nicer to be in that atmosphere.
Yep.
And for that reason, because of the high production and just what the film is, it is a nice, easy watch.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a lame overall
to
umbrella to put it under,
right,
but
right.
It's true. It's like it's on, and I was like, all right, I'll throw this on.
I think it's a good point.
And I had it on in the back. I was like doing something else.
Yeah,
I was just like, it's not that I love this movie at all, but all right, I'll throw it on because it's new, it's shiny, and it looks nice, and that's just how it is. And Daniel Craig is there and's got a big cast.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point, though, because that is the tone of that. That's the medicine that makes this mystery go down. If it's the same ho-hum, murder mystery mansion or something like that, well, guess what? We're bored by it by the setting alone. This being a new setting, again, it's a riff on what is predictable and making it new. This film uses its very large cast effectively, though. Glass Onion has a lot more, or is more of a comedy than I think Knives Out. And that's in part why I say, you kind of even don't need to bother with Knives Out.
Yeah, basically just know who the character Daniel,
Yeah, he's a Sherlock Holmes. You know what I mean? He's a master detective.
Right, he's a Southern Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's all you have to know about him.
He's the problem
and
solver.
he's well known, that's all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would say this is definitely a praise for me, though, oddly enough, for the comedy. Rian Johnson's writing seemed to have kind of jumped off the deep end a bit, but every sprinkle of comedy that you would have seen in Last Jedi or Knives Out, that because it was a sprinkle, felt out of left field. It now plays a much larger role here, and I feel is a lot more comfortable. I think it helps that these performances sell the comedy so much more. Dave Bautista and Kate Hudson being, I would say, a standout.
Yep,
honestly.
I think definitely.
Yeah, so it's maybe to the eyebrow raising part of what you're saying, Tom. It's a lot more pop culture referential. Gets a touch cringy at times.
Yes, I mean, well, if you want to talk cringe. Yeah, Rian Johnson, we could talk cringe. You can talk about The Last Jedi all day long.
Yeah.
But as far as that, it's definitely lighter, something that you're going to have a smirk on your face, maybe a little bit more than Knives Out. That's also, I think, why Daniel Craig's accent is a little bit more palatable.
Exactly.
Because we're just in this, this is the world that we're set in? Okay, fine.
Instead of Johnson weaving in these small beats of comedy, I think the shell is comedy, and it makes it all work a little bit better.
I think big time.
In combination, again, I think a lot of credit goes to Bautista and Hudson for their acting performances, because they really, they sell some really genuinely funny moments.
Yeah, Bautista's great in it.
I love Bautista.
It's weird because nothing's supposed to, like you said, nothing's supposed to be serious. I would not even call this a drama. I would call this a straight comedy whodunit.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I think that's totally fair.
I mean, and in that, we already know that there's going to be, some type of death or mystery or whatever, but overall, it is a comedy. And that's why play the characters a little silly, a little ridiculous. That's what sells Bautista. And I think that's what makes Craig okay. I would definitely not go into this thinking you're going to get any type of real
mystery,
drama or crime.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
you're watching a comedy, really.
And maybe that's the way to go, because guess what? It's always going to boil down to something formulaic. It's always the first person you expect, as far as a killer in these kind of, Agatha Christie things. So,
Right.
I think that's also another slight improvement over Knives Out and the slew of other, modern whodunits, is that how the mystery is structured. I already said, we're unpacking the friends a little bit. And I don't love the subgenre, but I think it always boils down to the double gotcha. I honestly don't know if there's a writing term for this or not, but the double gotcha of, oh, you think it's someone, and then guess what? We got you.
We can make something up you want called. We'll just start calling it that.
Double gotcha. I think that's great.
Unless we can come up with something.
I wrote it myself.
Yeah, producers, write in if you have anything more clever.
Yeah, there we go.
But double gotcha is good.
Yeah. But, this here, once again, with how it's structured, how it's edited, it's switching that up a little bit. And for the better. I think this is... I was surprisingly excited walking away from this film to see what may be coming for the third entry as well, just because of how much he switched up the game here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. The plot for me, like the overall story, I thought we were spoon-fed a little bit too much.
Right.
And I thought...
you think it more left to the imagination?
Yeah, especially with the first one, too. It's like, can we kind of be in on the mystery? You're not really you're not in the mystery too much, actually, in the first one. Things are a little bit too telling you things, too much, too revealing, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can't, I have no strong opinions of it.
Sure, and that's...
Like I said, the only strong opinions I have is I don't like Rian Johnson.
Okay.
I find Rian Johnson, I don't know, this movie ended up in my algos even after watching it.
Oh, yeah.
Where it was just...
Netflix really pushing it out.
Yeah, but even like my YouTube videos are just
really?
like, just like deeper stuff and like finding more about it and Rian Johnson breaking stuff down. Rian Johnson thinks he's so much better than he actually is. He will take the most basic shots that anyone would set up and shoot and will break them down to a point where he thinks like he's a genius. Yeah, and it's just like, no, it's just like you could talk about it, how great it is and how like magical. It's just like, but this is what every single other person would do. Also, I think he's a bit of a creep.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So
hot takes from Tom.
I think Rian Johnson.
Are you sure you're not giving that Tommy two shoes?
No, I think Rian Johnson is a bit of a creep.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's too good for his own good.
Yeah.
I think what helped this film wasn't Rian Johnson at all, but was the actors and was the a little bit of film editing.
Yeah, the editing I liked a lot. I think pacing as well.
And set designer.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Costume, set.
That's right.
Kind of a visual feast.
Costume and set. It's, again, I like the setting of being on this island.
Yep.
The poppy colors. Just the wardrobe kind of changes. More enjoyable than that dusty mansion that you were in Knives Out. So
the Clue formula.
So the things I come across liking or smiling about really has nothing to do with Johnson.
Yeah. I think he does have a hand in the comedy shell of the Onion, if you will.
He did write it. I mean, he wrote it.
Yeah.
Which was fine.
But I think it's a two to tango type of scenario that it would be nowhere without some serious good comedic performances as well, to actually sell it. Like, for instance, if we had Apples to Apples, same cast from Knives Out, I don't think the comedy would have been sold. I don't think
really, even with like a Chris Evans and
I just don't think it would have been there.
I do have to say our main female lead I think was better. Why am I blanking on her name? Janelle Mona.
Yes, Monet.
Monet. Sorry, she was better. I liked her as lead female over De Armas lead female, even though De Armas had this kind of cute and bubbly kind of naiveness to her. Yep. And Janelle Monáe is playing more definitely of a...
She's a character
she's more
in
competent.
the game.
Yeah, she's a very much more competent character.
Yeah. She has a part to play.
Definitely different, but she was enjoyable to be with along as a main lead, I would say.
Yeah. So, and I mean, we're definitely hitting on the same notes. I mean, I think there is a progression here, which... as an appreciator of film, as just a general movie watcher, as someone that might throw this on Netflix, when you're eating something, I think that I'm walking away with a positive take on Glass Onion. I think it's a subgenre already done to death, and these little changes in visual language, in editing, in comedy, they're things to switch it up and show progression for Johnson. So I love Tom. You sharpened the axe for me for Rian Johnson.
Well, you go ahead, take the last swing.
You killed him. I gave you the axe, and you did it for me. I didn't even have to. But it is. I took Last Jedi very personally, and I've been kind of a hater of Johnson. He's done some good stuff earlier, but
good stuff. Looper was fine.
Looper's fine, yeah. They got some cool gun design in Looper. That's why. That's why I like it. But yeah, honestly, I was pleasantly surprised with this because I saw Johnson in a point of development. This is not resting on his laurels. This is not big payday from Netflix. Let's pump out, carbon copies.
Well, it is big payday.
It is big payday, but he's at least using
not
it.
cash grab. He actually loves these old novels, and he cares about it.
Exactly, and I think that was enough for me to say, this I think is well above first Knives Out, and not only that, fairly excited to see what else comes down the pipeline. We're gonna go ahead and give Glass Onion a 68.
Yeah, 68, pretty good.
I
don't have much disagreement.
Ballpark, Tom and Two Shoes. Or you think north or south of that?
I would be, well, again, it's tough with the shoes because it's such wide ranging.
Right.
But
such a nuance.
I would probably come down a little bit below that.
Okay.
But honestly, fair. if I didn't know you and I came upon that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. My negativity is towards more so the guy and not so much the film.
Right.
And there were aspects, there was parts of smiling and you walk away with that. I didn't walk away from this being annoyed.
Right.
I walked away from this and be like, it was cute. Yeah. It was all right.
Exactly. And also, I mean, if it was on the background, maybe give it a fair shake.
Right, yeah.
If I cared more. What were you doing?
I forget what I was doing.
Wrapping presents?
But yeah, I think a 68 is a great, totally reasonable score. I think that's fair. I'm bringing it up a lot this week just because people are loving this film. Like, I say don't buy into this garbage from multiple sites,
If only to maybe just counteract some of the praise. Where you feeling there?
I'm feeling the praise is way too high.
Just way too high.
Oh my God, it's stupid. The praise is unbelievably too high.
Like it's a decent movie, but you're saying it's just like, all right, don't.
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess I'm skipping around it because we shit on the same people every time.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
some of the biggest players obviously are Rotten Tomatoes and Metascore.
Yep.
Or Metacritic. Okay, I'm sorry, Glass Onion, an 81 Metascore. That's a very, very good score.
For Meta.
Getting into the 80s in Meta is not quite as big of a deal as Us, but it is a good movie.
Oh, for sure.
It has 93 audience and critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. And folks, just know coming into it, it's a good movie. That's a 68.
Right.
Hey, that's a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
But don't expect anything more than that.
Exactly.
So
don't expect
I like
the best thing ever or something. Yeah,
and again, I understand we're always going after the main two guys, but it's what we
we got it.
It's got to be pointed out. It's ridiculous. Okay, now we spent enough time on that. Let's go into this one. This is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio by Guillermo del Toro.
You love this double take.
I watched this as well.
Really?
I'm excited to discuss it with you.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Very nice.
But let's get this is PG, an hour and 57 minutes. Obviously, del Toro's take, Netflix's now take on this Disney property.
Yep.
Weird how it all came out the same year as Zemeckis' Pinocchio on Disney Plus. It's hilarious that you have to compare these two.
Yeah, it really is.
But overall, let's talk about just this film. Let's not talk about too much lost and sauce in the old one.
Absolutely.
It's such its own unique product compared to the one that came out prior.
Absolutely. This is more of a comparison to the book, I feel like, than even original Pinocchio,
Well, there you go. Let's get into it.
Yep.
What are we taking on this journey through an hour and 57?
So I would say, man, I was super excited to see this, despite already reviewing a Pinocchio this year. I love stop motion to death. Del Toro, I think he works best in weird fantasy. And honestly, the tone of this film looked to be doing something original with a children's story, which I'm here for. Del Toro said this was a passion project for him, and the original book has importance in his life. But this is a much, much darker spin, as you probably expect coming from this director. I would say the best way I can give an elevator pitch to this is this is a dark fantasy about a little boy made of pine and is in a historically accurate pre-World War II world. One of the most, I think, brilliant decisions of this film is the realism of its setting, despite being a dark fantasy. I mean, full of magic and fairy godmothers and yada yada. 1930s Italy is taken very literally and infused in every element of this plot, and I can't tell you how much I love that. It is so awesome. It is so cool. And, I kind of have some notes of, does this really need to be PG? You know what I mean? I feel like this could really fit a nice PG-13 slot or something like that. It's also straight to Netflix, so I don't know.
I think PG fits it.
Yeah? Okay.
It might be a hard PG.
Sure.
I think PG-13, I mean, really saying that you should be 13 watching this. It's cool for 10-year-olds still.
Yeah.
It's soft enough.
Yeah.
Where you're saying it's darker, I completely agree. We're still dealing with Pinocchio and the character Pinocchio himself. You're gonna be cracking some smiles.
Oh, yeah.
Like he is. It's like it is. It's like being with a puppy at times.
yeah, absolutely.
With the innocenceness of it all.
Absolutely. He really has no recollection of his life. He's just born into this world as a child. And,
I mean, it really had me enjoying it.
Yeah.
It really cuts through the movie like butter a little bit.
Yep.
Because you're dealing with interesting dark theming. And then just kind of to be brought back, having this smile and enjoying it. It's like having a bad day and coming home to a puppy.
Right, exactly. And Geppetto has one hell of a bad day. So, frankly, I want to stay away from elaborating how much a historically accurate Italy plays into the plot, but let me say it was amazing. I mean, Pinocchio goes into the church at one moment, and a woman holds up the evil eye, and she says Malocchia, and that's like old school Italian witchcraft. Like Del Toro's killing it with this. He's killing it. Writing wise, I was really happy to see Patrick McHale. First feature he's writing on. He is talent from Adventure Time, Over the Garden Wall, and I cannot wait to see more from him because clearly he's able to work in kind of a dark children's fantasy, especially leaning more towards Over the Garden Wall. If you've never seen it, watch it. Very good animation, and kids as well.
It's fun. I didn't know. I knew that Guillermo del Toro co-wrote it. I knew he had other writers along with him. I didn't know that was his background though. And it makes so much sense now.
Yeah, absolutely. Even some Adventure Time stuff. I mean,
a big time Adventure Time, like big time.
Yeah. So
wow,
excited
that's
to see more because this was first feature, I believe. So excited to see him crack into more opportunities and exciting opportunities.
Yeah,
too.
definitely.
So I think my gut feeling is that just stripping Disney from the story of a story that was originally not Disney was the single best thing that could happen from this. This is appropriately whimsical at times. This is appropriately dark at times, and it's all weird when it needs to be. It still accomplishes this with songs, and I'll say maybe losing some of the Disney polish to songs is a miss, but I don't think the songs were a failure at all. Were they maybe at the quality of There Are No Strings Attached to Me? I mean, like quite literally cultural icons sometimes with this. When You Wish Upon a Star. I mean, these are big songs from Disney. So cutting that from the story, it was kind of hard to ignore for me, but I definitely thought cutting out Disney was the single best thing this film could have done.
It's such a shame. I mean, you think about how much Disney has been in, forget like all the Disney, the politics, which has been a huge thing over the past year or two. Forget that.
Yep.
Just the filmmaking itself coming from Disney. It's really sad that you're dealing with this intellectual property, the oldest or second oldest that Disney really dealt with.
It was like, second or something.
And I'm sad that it's not with Disney. I'm sad that some of those songs aren't there. Like it probably could be knocked a little bit because of just that. It's talk about classic with those songs. The fact that they came out with the Pinocchio this year with Zemeckis and Hanks, and it was just not good at all. The fact that this exists, I'm so happy about.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I'm not rethinking Del Toro, but
he said it.
No.
Folks, if you don't know, Tom has two axes to grind this episode, and one's definitely for Guillermo.
So I'm putting this in its own box, okay? And every time this movie comes up in my head, anytime we call back to it or talk about it, I can be in complete reverence about it, complete love, and talk very fondly about Del Toro in the box of Guillermo Del Toro's Pinocchio.
Everything else
still remains the same about my criticisms of Del Toro.
I'll crack that box open. We'll get there.
This balancing that failed in so many of the movies that we've talked, well, not so many movies,
sure.
but the balancing that failed in things like Babylon or maybe even the Fabelmans a little bit. Strange World with trying to bring in different aspects into that children's category. That was such a bad balance. This was unbelievable. Like you said, dealing with old Italy, dealing with those dark themes, dealing with the dark themes around Geppetto himself.
Yes.
The bad day he had.
Incredible.
It was unreal, and it was refreshing. It was beautiful looking. I mean, beautiful looking. The stop motion was incredible.
Yeah.
Through all the animation that we're getting hit with constantly now, especially with streaming services.
Sure.
This is such a shining light and something that I hope gets picked up by a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Don't sleep on it anyway.
Yeah. Animation-wise, let's definitely touch on this. I thought this was really excellent animation. Stop-motion animation, that is. Apparently, it's the Jim Henson Company. From Jim Henson that is doing animation design, and I think they just killed it here. I mean, this looks better than the Henry Selick film that we reviewed. And I will confidently say Henry Selick is the king of stop motion animation. At least that's alive. So,
right, yeah.
When it comes to Del Toro first crack, Jim Henson Company first crack at stop motion anime, they came out swinging. They killed this production. I thought it was amazing.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, beautiful.
The designs are just so gorgeous. The fairy godmother has like biblical angel eyes on her. Like, it's so awesome.
But even the texture and like Geppetto and the way his hair looks, everything about that, it was like, this is nice to see. This has... It looked clay. I mean, sometimes it looked like clay and clay animation, and other times just straight digital, but all very pretty, all working really well together.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's where, kind of ending on some notes with Pinocchio, I think is a perfect example. He's more wood-like than ever. They take advantage of Pinocchio being a wire frame. If you think about the production of stop motion, how creatively can they move this figurine? I think a great example is the first steps he takes. He like walks like a spider initially.
Yeah.
It's kind of terrifying as well. But
were you getting any James of the Giant Peach-ish vibes?
Oh, definitely.
Okay,
absolutely.
all right.
And,
wasn't just me
for the stop motion aspect of that.
Yeah, for sure. But
that's Selick as well.
You get a weirdness from it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That weirdness from a movie.
Yeah.
And this in all the good ways.
Yeah.
But to Pinocchio's kind of comedic relief, so much of it comes down to the way he moves.
Yep.
Because it's just it's hilarious. Yeah.
And the fact that we're getting jokes around the stop motion, I mean, this is really top of the line.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, top of the line.
This really did come up I mean, do we know how long he worked on this?
I don't.
And the animators had and everything like that.
I even had trouble finding out some of the details with the involvement of the Jim Henson Company. Of was it just design?
What was the
both?
last thing that company did? Do we know
a
some of their
lot.
history?
But obviously connection to Muppets and whatnot. For Jim Henson,
okay.
So. But I mean, there's a lot of gush here. There's a lot of praise, folks. And all of this is to say one overwhelming thought that I had while watching this. Del Toro and his team wiped the floor with Disney's own IP in the same year they took a shot at it. We're going to go ahead and give Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio an 83.
Wow, 83. Really good score.
Yeah. I had to control myself because, again, I have such a love for the Italian beats of it.
Yes, yeah.
and old world Italian beat.
Do you think if it had the original songs in it and they incorporated that, do you think it probably would have bumped it up a bit?
Absolutely.
Because you know me, I hate songs in movies typically, and everyone think that's why I would raise it up for me personally. But because it's Pinocchio, it's Pinocchio.
Exactly. We're talking about really notable songs. I think it was more so. I didn't dislike the ones that were there. It was just more so. Unfortunately, I couldn't. It was distracting a bit. I couldn't, especially when he goes to the circus. Not having No Strings Attached to Me as the song, I definitely noticed
a lost connection kind of there.
Exactly.
Wow, 83 is a great score.
It's a great movie.
Very good score.
Give me it. What's Tommy to? He's been given half shoes.
I was struggling on even if I wanted to give this
a
Tommy Two Shoes.
Fair enough.
I will give one.
Okay.
A big struggle, actually, believe it or not, between Two Shoes, One Laced, and Two Shoes, Both Laced.
Wow.
But after thinking about it a little bit more, this gets Two Shoes, One Lace tied.
Okay.
Which is very good.
Absolutely.
And in fact, it's kind of agreeing with you. I would say, like you, if you were feeling just a slightly better about it, and if I was slightly better, you'd probably bump it in that 85.
Right.
And I would bump it into Two Shoes, Two Laces.
Yep.
Coming away from this, I don't know. I'm going to give it one more watch because unfortunately I had to watch this a little bit cut up and separated.
Fair
for
enough.
instance, I had to finish this morning.
Sure.
But I wanted to watch it, and talk about it with you. I'm going to probably watch this in the next week or so. I don't think I'll really return to it again. It's so unique, and it was so nice to be in this film and kind of in the environment of this film, enjoying it for what it is. But it is a little weird. It has this kind of darkness to it. It tells this story, and then when it wraps up, that's kind of it's its own little pack. I don't know. It's one of the first movies in a long time that I felt I watched it, absolutely loved it, and you feel like you have a bit of connection with it. But one that I don't want to return to again.
That didn't have rewatchability. I think
or not
it's a
even
fabulous
rewatchability.
note.
It's that I personally don't want to return to it.
Yeah,
and I don't know what it is. There's films that, for instance, Glass Onion has rewatchability, but not really. I don't love it like I love this film.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And part of that is also why I loved it. This unique feel that you got from it, this refreshing aspect. But a movie that when it's done, I feel like I can let it rest there. Yeah.
And maybe one that you're excited to recommend, but again, just for yourself, you gotta watch it for yourself one time, maybe not something to return to or something like that. I agree. There is something to that. Hard to put into words, but there's a gut feeling.
Sometimes, yeah. I've heard actually people talk about that. I've had, I think, 2 people I heard had that about The Revenant.
Oh, really?
They saw it in the theater, saw it once, and loved it.
Sure.
Truly loved it. Don't want to return to it again.
A topic of the misery films that we've been covering.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, watch it once, get it done, get the medicine down.
But I can't say how happy I am that this film exists. I love that Del Toro did it. I hate that his name is in the title. Truly hate that his name is in the title.
It deserves to just be Pinocchio.
But I really wish they actually could have called it something else. Kind of a little bothersome, but
maybe, I don't know, the original author,
hopefully people hearing this, they give it a watch as well. Your 83 is huge, just talking about it. It's definitely special. It's definitely great. It should be noted too, Del Toro meant this to be the kind of the third and final in his self-perceived trilogy that he did.
Yeah, this is fascinating. We were talking about this.
This, Pan's Labyrinth, and the Devil's
Backbone.
And the Devil's Backbone.
Yep.
He thinks really pair well together in their own little trilogy.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. You can almost see if you can see the connections and what he tries to go in. If you don't feel like letting him tarnish of why he thinks that, be interested for you to go ahead and watch those and see the connection points.
Yeah.
A beautiful and interesting film, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see a connection with Devil's Backbone, just kids with like very harsh realities.
Sure, yeah.
Here, but Pan's Labyrinth. It's going to be on the watch list for the next couple of weeks because I'm unlike you. I am on a Del Toro high coming off of this.
You never got.
You've
been. Yeah. What are you talking about?
We're watching them all.
Well, good. I can't say I'm going to watch Pan's Labyrinth. But yeah, I was excited to watch this and talk about it with you.
I am so glad. Yeah. In a box or not, I'm glad that you loved it.
Oh, it's in a box.
Yeah.
Because next week, Grinding Nemo he's came out with and all that stuff, so we don't have to.
Oh.
His Oscar win?
Shape of Water. Grinding.
Okay.
Shape of Water is great.
So, won the Oscar. Okay, Vin, looking at these scores here, anything else you want to finish up on? Anything you want to touch on, or are we going to roll credits here?
No, we ran along. I loved how much we had to talk about these films. I mean, we ran along in a very legitimate way. That, we had a lot to say.
They're all new releases, pretty much too.
Yeah.
We should go along on some of these.
Absolutely. But thanks for a solid 2022. Here's to 2023, and Tom Daly's coming.
Yes, sir. We hope to grow and continue on here in 2023. Enjoy and really enjoy the episode next week. It's a blast. It's our year in review, kind of touching on things, and of course the big Tom Dailies. We have some fun, some little awards and everything that we'll give out as well. It's a good time, so catch up with that. We'll be back with Vin covering some movies 2 weeks from now. But for right now, we have The Fabelmans with a 65%, Babylon with a 39%, Strange World with a 52%, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery with a 68%, and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio by Guillermo del Toro with an 83%. Folks, we thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, could you give us a good rating or tell a friend about us? I'll get it right in 2023. If you're wondering if a film is worth the watch, or if you'd just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, folks, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.